I know I shouldn't have gone, but I was desperate for ice cream. It was one of those nights where I couldn't sleep, and the craving wouldn't leave me alone. The convenience store was only a few minutes away, and my mom was already asleep. She always warned me not to go out after dark. Nothing good happens after midnight. I rolled my eyes every time she said it. I was 18. I had my license. The roads in our town were always empty at night. What was the worst that could happen? I grabbed my hoodie, slipped my keys out of the kitchen drawer, and quietly eased the front door shut behind me. The drive there was completely uneventful. The streets were deserted except for a few porch lights glowing in the distance. The store was nearly empty. I grabbed my ice cream, a bottle of water, paid, and headed back to my car without seeing another customer. I remember thinking my mom had worried for nothing. That feeling lasted about 3 minutes. I was driving down the old county road that cut through miles of forest when my headlights caught something strange. A shopping cart. It was sitting perfectly still in the middle of the road. There weren't any houses nearby, no stores, nothing. Just trees. I slowed down, confused. For a second I considered getting out and moving it, but something about it felt wrong. The cart wasn't empty. Inside was a teddy bear. Its white fur looked filthy, and one button I was missing. It was facing directly toward my windshield. Every instinct told me not to stop. I steered around the cart and kept driving. I glanced in my rearview mirror. The cart disappeared into the darkness. I laughed nervously. People dumped weird stuff all the time. That had to be all it was. Then my headlights flickered. Once. Twice. The dashboard flashed before everything returned to normal. I looked down.
My fuel gauge suddenly read empty. That wasn't possible. I'd filled the tank 2 days ago. Before I could even process it, the engine sputtered, then died. The car rolled silently until it stopped on the shoulder. I stared at the steering wheel. No, come on! I tried restarting it. Nothing. Again, just clicking. I reached for my phone. No service. Not even one bar. Of course. I looked out the windows. Nothing but endless woods stretching in every direction. The silence felt unnatural. No insects, no wind, no distant traffic. It was like the entire forest had gone quiet. I locked every door. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I kept trying my phone. Still nothing. That's when headlights appeared behind me. Relief washed over me. Finally, someone could help. The vehicle slowed as it approached. Instead of pulling beside me, it stopped about 50 feet back. Its headlights stayed on. Whoever was driving didn't get out. They just sat there, watching. I flashed my hazard lights. No response. I waved through my rear window. Still nothing. Minutes dragged by. Finally, the driver's door opened. A tall figure stepped out, too far away to make out any details. They began walking toward my car. Slowly, very slowly. Something immediately felt wrong. They weren't carrying a flashlight. They weren't calling out. They just kept walking. Step, step, step. I reached for the horn. It didn't work. My chest tightened. A figure got closer, still silent. About 20 feet away, they stopped. I could finally make out their face, or at least I tried to. They were wearing a hood so low that it completely hid their features.
Then they slowly raised one arm, not waving, pointing, past me, toward the woods. I frowned. Before I could turn around, suddenly, loud, bang! Something slammed against my passenger window. I screamed. A filthy hand smacked against the glass. Someone had been standing beside my car the entire time. Their face was inches from mine. Mud covered their skin. Their eyes looked wide and almost excited. They smiled. Not a normal smile. Too wide. Way too wide. I threw the car into panic mode, trying the ignition over and over. Nothing. The person outside began pulling on the passenger door handle. Locked. They yanked harder. Again. Again. The whole car shook. I looked toward the person in the road. They hadn't moved. They were still pointing toward the woods. Then I realized why. Movement. Dozens of tiny flashes. Eyes. Reflecting my headlights from between the trees. There wasn't just one person out there. There were several, standing silently among the branches, watching, waiting. My breathing became uncontrollable. I couldn't think. The person outside suddenly stopped pulling the handle. They looked toward the forest, then back at me. They smiled even wider. A distant engine echoed through the trees. Another vehicle. Fast. Very fast. The people in the woods vanished almost instantly. The person at my window sprinted into the darkness. The hooded figure in the road disappeared just as quickly. Seconds later, a pickup truck rounded the bend. An older couple was inside. The driver rolled down his window. "Are you all right?" I nearly burst into tears. They helped push my car while I steered. The moment we reached the highway, my engine suddenly started. Perfectly. As if nothing had happened. The fuel gauge jumped back to half a tank. I tried explaining everything to the sheriff the next morning.
He listened carefully before asking where it happened. When I showed him the location, his expression changed. He became unusually quiet. He told me officers had responded to several abandoned vehicles along that same road over the years. Every driver claimed their cars mysteriously stopped working. Every single one reported seeing someone standing in the road. Some described a shopping cart. Others described an empty stroller. One man swore he saw a bicycle. But every story ended the same way. Someone always waited in the woods. The sheriff said they never found the people responsible. No fingerprints. No tire tracks. Nothing. A week later, I sold my car. I couldn't bring myself to drive it anymore. Months passed before I finally started sleeping normally again. Then one evening, while cleaning out the glove compartment, I found something I knew hadn't been there before. A small white teddy bear. Dirty. Missing one button eye. Tucked beneath it was a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it with shaking hands. There were only 6 words written in faded black ink. "You should have stopped the first time."
I should have waited for my brother. I replay that decision almost every night, because if I'd stayed inside that diner for just 10 more minutes, none of this would have happened. My shift ended just after 1 in the morning. The rain had stopped, but the sidewalks still glistened beneath the streetlights. My apartment was only a 15-minute walk away, and I had taken the route dozens of times before. It felt safe. At least, it always had. I zipped up my jacket, put in one earbud, and started walking. The streets were deserted. Most of the shops were dark, their windows reflecting nothing but empty pavement and the occasional flicker of a traffic light changing for cars that never came. Halfway home, I noticed something strange. Every crosswalk button I passed was already glowing. Not flashing, not blinking, just glowing. Steadily, as if someone had pressed every single one moments before I arrived. I laughed to myself, probably some electrical problem. Then I reached the next intersection. The button wasn't glowing. As I approached, it clicked by itself. The light turned green. No cars. No pedestrians. Just me. A cold shiver crept up my back. I crossed quickly. That's when I heard it. Click. Behind me. I turned around. The crosswalk button on the opposite side had lit up again. By itself. I kept walking faster. Another intersection. Another glowing button. Click. Green light. Cross. Click. Again. Every intersection. Every single one. It felt like something was guiding me somewhere, or making sure I kept moving. I pulled out my phone to call my brother. No signal. My music had stopped too. The screen froze for a second before turning completely black. The battery had been almost full. I smacked the side of the phone. Nothing. The city suddenly felt much quieter than before. No distant traffic. No dogs barking. Not even the buzz of power lines. Only my footsteps. Then, another pair. Soft. Steady. Matching mine perfectly. I stopped walking. The footsteps stopped too. My heartbeat pounded inside my ears. I slowly looked over my shoulder. The street behind me was empty. Every storefront. Every parked car. Every alley. Nothing. I told myself I was imagining things. I started walking again. Step. 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 The second pair returned immediately. Exactly behind mine. Not faster. Not slower. Perfectly synchronized. I refused to look back again. Instead, I crossed another intersection. Click. The button lit up before I even reached it. The light changed instantly. As I stepped into the crosswalk, every streetlight around me suddenly went out. One after another, leaving only the light directly above me. The rest of the street disappeared into darkness. I froze. Then I noticed another shadow inside the circle of light. Not mine. It stretched beside me, longer than it should have been. I slowly looked down. There was no one standing there, but the shadow remained. It moved. I didn't. Every muscle in my body locked up. Then all the streetlights came back at once. The shadow was gone. I ran. I didn't care where. I just needed people, a car, anything. I turned onto a side street I didn't recognize. The buildings looked older. The windows were boarded up. The road narrowed until it became little more than an alley. Dead end.
dropped. I spun around. The entrance I'd come through looked different, longer somehow, much farther away than it should have been. Then I heard it. Click. A pedestrian crossing signal. Impossible. There wasn't an intersection anywhere nearby. Click. Again. Closer. Click. Closer. The sound echoed between the brick walls. Something was walking toward me. Not footsteps. Clicks. Perfectly timed, like someone pressing a crosswalk button after every step. Click. 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 A tall silhouette appeared at the far end of the alley, completely black. No face, no features, just standing there, its head slowly tilted to one side, then the other, as though deciding what I was. I backed against the wall. My breathing became uncontrollable. The figure took one slow step. Click. Another. Click. Each movement was followed by that same mechanical sound. It never hurried. It didn't need to. I tried my phone one last time. The screen suddenly lit up. One notification. Unknown number. The message read, "Wrong way home." Before I could react, every streetlight in the alley exploded at once. Glass rained onto the pavement. Darkness swallowed everything. I ran blindly. I don't remember finding the exit. I don't remember reaching the main road. The next thing I knew, I was pounding on the window of an all-night pharmacy. The employee unlocked the door just enough to pull me inside. He kept asking what happened. I couldn't answer. I stood there shaking, staring through the glass. The alley entrance was directly across the street, empty, until one of the pedestrian crossing buttons lit up by itself. Click. The employee frowned. "That's strange," he muttered. "What? That crossing hasn't worked in almost 10 years. I never walked home again. I even moved to another part of the city a month later, but every now and then, usually after midnight, my phone lights up with a notification. No number, no app, just 2 words. Cross now."
Running my own business meant I spent most evenings catching up on work long after everyone else had gone to bed. My house was the one place I could finally relax. It wasn't huge, but it was quiet, comfortable, and tucked away at the end of a peaceful cul-de-sac. Nothing exciting ever happened there. Until one Friday night. I'd been working in my home office since early that morning. By the time I finally shut my laptop, it was nearly 11:30. I made myself a cup of tea, locked the front door like I always did, and settled onto the couch to watch a documentary before bed. Outside, the neighborhood was completely still. No passing cars, no barking dogs, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock above the fireplace. It was the kind of silence that makes you believe nothing could possibly go wrong. Then my security camera app sent a notification. Motion detected garage. I frowned. Probably a cat. The outdoor cameras picked up animals all the time. I opened the live feed. Nothing. The garage looked exactly as I'd left it. Boxes stacked neatly against the wall, my workbench, storage shelves. No movement. I dismissed the alert and went back to my show. About 10 minutes later, another notification. Garage door opened. I sat upright. That didn't make any sense. The garage door was closed. I had watched it shut earlier that evening. I switched back to the camera. The image was frozen. A loading circle spun endlessly. Then the screen went black. Camera offline. Every camera connected to my house disappeared at the same time. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my phone and checked the Wi-Fi. Disconnected. The entire network had gone down. I walked toward the hallway, listening. Nothing. Then, a metallic clink echoed from the garage, like someone setting a tool onto concrete. I stopped moving. Another sound. A cabinet door closing. Slowly. Carefully. Someone was inside. I backed away from the hallway as quietly as I could. Every instinct screamed at me not to investigate. Instead, I slipped into my bedroom and locked the door. I dialed 911. The dispatcher answered immediately. I explained everything in a whisper. She asked if I could safely leave the house. "No," I whispered. "If they're in the garage, they'd see me." She told me officers were already on their way and asked me to stay on the line. I turned off every light in the bedroom. The room became almost completely dark. Only the faint glow of my phone illuminated the walls. Minutes crawled by. Then I heard it. The door connecting the garage to the house creaked open. A long, slow squeak. Then silence. I could almost picture someone standing perfectly still in the hallway, listening, waiting. A floorboard creaked. Another. The footsteps were careful, deliberate. Whoever it was knew someone might be home. They weren't searching randomly. They were checking each room, one by one. The dispatcher quietly asked if I could still hear them. I whispered, yes. Then another sound froze every muscle in my body. A doorknob turning. Not my bedroom. The guest room across the hall. The handle rattled. The door opened. Footsteps entered. Silence. Then another door. The bathroom. Then my office. Each room. One after another. Getting closer. I looked toward my bedroom door. The light underneath it suddenly disappeared. Someone was standing outside. I held my breath. The doorknob moved. Once. Twice. Very slowly. The lock held. The person stopped. For several seconds. Nothing happened. Then came 3 quiet knocks. Not loud. Not angry. Just tap, tap, tap. My blood turned cold. The dispatcher whispered that officers had just arrived outside. She told me not to move. The silence outside my bedroom lasted another few seconds. Then hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. A door slammed downstairs. Someone started running. I heard shouting, "Police, don't move." Heavy footsteps thundered through the house. Something crashed. Glass shattered. A man yelled. Then another voice. "There he is." The struggle lasted only moments before everything became quiet again. An officer knocked on my bedroom door. "This is the police. You're safe now." I unlocked the door with trembling hands. 2 officers stood outside. One escorted me downstairs while the other searched the rest of the house. In the living room, they had a man handcuffed face down on the floor. He couldn't have been older than 30. I asked if he had been alone. The officer looked at me. "No." My heart sank. "We found another man hiding inside your attic." I stared at him. "My attic?" He nodded. "He'd been up there long before you called." The words barely registered. I never used the attic. There wasn't even a pull-down ladder in the hallway anymore. I'd removed it during renovations months earlier. The officer explained that the second man had entered through an old access panel in the garage ceiling. They believed he'd climbed into the attic hours before I even got home. Waiting, watching, listening. The first suspect had arrived later after disabling the cameras and internet. Their backpacks contained gloves, zip ties, duct tape, and a cordless drill. One detective told me something I'll never forget. If your cameras hadn't gone offline, you probably never would have realized someone was already inside. I sold that house 3 months later. Even now, every time I hear an unexpected notification from my phone, I feel my stomach drop. Because sometimes I wonder, how long had that man been sitting above my ceiling, listening to me, before I ever knew he was there?